Hello, this is Mario Serafero, editor-in-chief at XDAdevelopers.com. Welcome to the 12th episode of XDA Podcast. Our goal is to cover the latest in Indo tech news from an enthusiast perspective, and I'm joined here today by some people of Reddit.
Yeah, I'm Corey Fiak. I'm from the Android subreddit, and I'm also an Android developer.
And Daniel Marchena from the Android subreddit.
So, first thing we want to talk about, we had a couple of leaks that we were seeing this week. First off, there's been a lot of rumors around the Samsung S7, still some more information coming out around that. And then I think something new we saw this week was the LG G5. Some interesting things on the G5 design. Probably the most far out there is the rumor that there's going to be a detachable bottom on that with a hot swappable battery that you can pop out. I know we've had devices that have had batteries that we can swap out before. They've kind of fallen out the wayside. What do you guys think of this rumor?
I think it's pretty insane. I honestly don't believe that it will make it, and if it does, I will be extremely surprised. And it just seems impractical. I'm sure that if they do make it, if they do something like that, I'm sure I will probably change my mind because, again, if they're mass producing this thing and it's LG and it's a flagship that's competing against the S7, I'm assuming their standards for quality are pretty high. But just on, I can't help but escape the idea that just the concept itself, like you said, it's very out there. It's something that's so weird. The fact that you can, detach the bottom and put a battery in. Even then, we still got to see alleged leaks of a redesign too, which I think looked quite attractive, and especially with rumors of a metal body, which again we've been hearing for so long, and this is why I don't pay too much lip service to rumors because we've been hearing about LG metal body phones for a while. We've seen false leaks with like a stylus and all these stuff, but it makes me. I think that this leak holds some value in the fact that so many people are talking about it. It's obviously something people want, removal of batteries, and if it's indeed correct, it would mean that it would be, I think, the first actual full metal phone, if it's full metal, with a removable battery, and that I think would really be a shift in paradigm where people will finally reconsider, and perhaps OEMs will reconsider. And I think that a lot of the OEMs that focus on premium body, premium design, and metal body, metal design, I think they will be left in quite a shock.
Yeah, and I agree with you as well that I think for me the redesign is one of the biggest things. Seeing the G5, I've never been a fan of the rear buttons on the G4, G2, and G3. I know a lot of people are, and that was kind of like LG's token, pretty much. That they always had those rear buttons.
Yeah.
So it's nice to see them changing their design. This is something that we had heard a lot of rumors about Samsung doing, a lot of rumors about HTC doing recently, and then Samsung did it, HTC really didn't.
Yeah.
So it's good to see them stick with the design. It's just starting to get old, and now they're starting to freshen it up. And LG with the G4, they really pretty targeted that device towards things people wanted. They wanted a removable battery. They wanted an SD card. So we saw flagship specs that were right there with the S6, but yet it gave us a lot of the things that we wanted. And as much as I want to discredit this sliding battery thing, because I think it would, make the device flimsy or just, it could lose rigidity over time. I wouldn't put it beyond LG. But I do have to give one other thing I wanted to mention, though, is this device is going to be announced. We're exactly a month away from the event right now. So, if this is true, then, it's in its final stages of production by this point.
Yeah. So I think that if there was a company able to pull this off and pull this off with quality, it's pretty safe to say that it would either be Samsung or LG, at least in the Android space, because of just the sheer size and experience that LG has. As far as the redesign goes, I think it's a great idea. You mentioned that the G4 tried to give everyone what they wanted. I think that it's true and it's not at the same time. I think that They really focused on paper specifications, but in the real world, it didn't quite deliver. For example, their screen, they advertised this amazing new screen standard that actually was not able to properly display the color accuracy on most of the media out there because it used a standard for actual cinema movies, seeing theater movies, not the readily available media that we all consume. And they touted all these amazing color accuracy that would only apply if you actually had kind of media format that you don't actually have. Um, the same goes to the processor. They said, oh well, we work really hard with Qualcomm. I remember during their event, Qualcomm was in there, and they said, yeah, we've optimized this thing so hard. We've been working for like 2 years on it. Which I doubt. I always doubt when they said that they've been working on the very specific internals in the processors for 2 years with the companies or whatever. Which again they didn't. But even though, another thing is the leather back, which I think fell short because it tried to give it a premium material, but the rest of the phone was plastic. And this is not to diss the G4. I think that the B10 was also another kind of phone that tried to give everyone what they wanted, and I think that one succeeded a little bit more, except perhaps the design. It's kind of like a hit or miss for many people. But what I do think is that LG is playing it smart because people do grow tired of designs, and I couldn't have imagined an S6 that looked like yet another S5 and had those materials again. As much as losing the removable battery and the micro SD slots and the waterproofing too, as much as that hurt, I think that they really rekindle the hype for the Galaxy phones with the redesign and a few new things. They can do the same with the G4, and I'm also glad that they're removing the rear buttons. I'm not a particular fan of rear buttons. However, it's not just that. It's that originally they said that the rear buttons allowed them to have smaller bezels and a thinner profile and all this, which they completely abandoned with the G3 and the G4, which have a screen-to-body ratio that is far below the best of the competition. If you look at the G2 and the Note 3, the G2 had a better screen-to-body ratio than the Note 3, but with the Note 4 and the G3, that was even lower, and the G4, it already became a standard screen-to-body ratio. Yet I still saw people saying, "Oh, well, it doesn't feel like a 5.5-inch phone because, it's got very thin bezels." Like, wait, what are you talking about? It does not have thin bezels anymore. You're living in the past, man.
Yeah, I think some of that size of the device though comes from its shape as well. It was kind of like the Motorola Moto X had the same principle where you have that curved design. It helps sit in hand a little bit more, and it feels smaller. But I agree with you though that they did kind of abandon that, the bezel ratio towards the end. But it is going to be kind of weird, in my opinion, to see a rear power button and then combine that with side volume buttons. I still think that's going to be kind of odd. Especially because if there's not going to be a power button on the side of the phone at all, I think that's going to be an annoying thing to get used to of having things in two different locations.
Yeah, having a power button on the back, but side buttons. The closest thing I can imagine is the Zenfone 2. It has volume buttons on the back and a power button on top, a really, really mushy power button that is built into the case of the phone. It's not built into the body of the phone. It's built into the case, and it has like this weird little piece of cloth, so it doesn't. It's such a terrible design. But other than that, I definitely think it would be weird getting used to. But then again, I do like when people, when manufacturers come up with very smart implementations to things that we take for granted. Yeah. So we might see some of that. Like again, the trackpad fingerprint sensor on the Honor 5X, that is, I think, one of the coolest things I've seen so far in 2016.
And that's one thing I wanted to mention is we're seeing the fingerprint sensor. It sounds like they're going to add that to the G5, which is absolutely critical for anyone that's had a phone with a fingerprint sensor and is used to just being able to unlock it just like that. It's and then with the new Sony, the news that we talked about last week that their flagship's not going to have a fingerprint sensor in the U.S. It really positions it well. And there's actually an article on the subreddit this week about how nearly a third of all Android owners don't have a lock screen enabled on their phone because they find it so inconvenient. And
Yeah.
if you're like me, you've got a lot of sensitive information on your phone. You've got all of your email, which right there, that's a big honeypot of information. And it's really important to make sure that we're keeping this locked down if you were to lose your phone or have it stolen from you. So adding that fingerprint sensor, I think, is going to be really big boost to convenience.
So on that note, and this is just like a mini rant, I really, really, really wish that Google would advertise their security features a little bit more. Because I think that if people knew about Smart Lock and how convenient it is, if people knew that any Bluetooth device that they have connected, or even like connected to their laptop, so if they're in their house or they have their laptop around, they won't, need to go for the unlock screen. Little things like that I really wish Google would advertise, because every now and then, I mean, you guys see in the subreddit, every now and then we see a top post. It's like, I found this really obscure feature in this Google service, and people are like, wow.
Yeah, I agree with you as well. But, I mean, Google is getting better with that recently. I actually just saw my first TV commercial for the 6P. I think it was during one of the championship games for the NFL. I had been seeing the 5Xs, and I saw the 6P. I think it was the gold one, too. So I think Google's improving its advertising. I think we're going to continue to see that improvement, and I think it's just going to take a little bit of time. And I think the split into Alphabet definitely was the catalyst, I think, to help push that for some odd reason. I don't know if there's any legality issues there or something. But I think you're going to start seeing a lot of those things advertised. Smart Lock, I agree with you 100%. I use Smart Lock all the time. That's why a fingerprint sensor to me on an Android device doesn't mean a whole lot, because I'm always connected to my Moto 360. So it's a once in a blue moon that I'll actually use the pin unlock on my Nexus 6. But still.
Yeah. The only time I really unlock my phone is when I turn it on, and when I turn it on, I have to enter a PIN because it won't allow the fingerprint sensor.
And for those of you out there using mobile payments, fingerprint sensor is also a godsend. I know that Samsung Pay also does allow you to enter a PIN, but it's way more inconvenient than just putting your finger on the thing.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Especially if it gets faster.
But we're coming into an interesting season. The LG G5 is supposed to be announced in February. The Galaxy S7 we still haven't heard much about. I think Samsung's doing an event at MWC, or that was Sony. I can't remember which one. Somebody has an event at MWC, and then HTC. I think it was like, what is it, Codename Perfume or something like that, for the M10 or M20. I can't remember the code name. But that's rumored to not being released or not being announced till mid to late March. So where do you guys think that Samsung is going to fall in with its product cycle? Do you think that they're going to go head-to-head against LG and aim for the end of February with the MWC hype, or do you think they're going to wait till that settles down, do a release or announcement mid-March, and then release before April?
I think that they definitely want to get, if not earlier, at the same time as LG, and certainly before HTC. I certainly think that at this point in time, the announcement date is crucial, especially because they're moving it earlier than usual. And I'm really expecting Samsung to really, really up its game with the S7. I hope I'm not disappointed. I really hope I'm not. But I think that it's, first of all, the fact that the hope that it might come with a Snapdragon 820 processor, that really makes me personally happy, because it means that I can actually see some nice custom ROMs on that, likely. However, there's still that demotivation of, Samsung Pay, which I really want to try out this time around, because when I got the Note 5, it was quite not available, and then it became available, but not for my bank, and I was just like, okay, I'm just going to root it because I'm tired of this memory management. If they do release an S7, that like the rumors say have multiple variants and multiple size variants. I think that will be key in order to maximize the appeal of the S7. I'm sure that will lead. I hope that it doesn't lead to fragmentation. I'm sure that at least it will lead to some disparity and likely some feature disparity, which I really don't appreciate in Samsung phones, because honestly, the edge features, some people might actually like them, but they might not need the edge display. You really don't need an edge display for the edge features. In so many other things like it in the Note series, for example, when there was no pen window in regular Galaxy S flagships, and now there are. So at least they do eventually catch up with feature parity, just not during the release year. It's usually after software updates and then the next iteration. Um, so I'm really excited for that, and if there turns out to be a phablet Galaxy S7, I will likely end up selling my Note 5 because I really wouldn't see the point of having both phones when except for the stylus, of course. The S Pen is really good. I just don't use it nearly as much to justify having, or rather not having, $500 in my pocket.
Yeah. Now, here's a question. Do you think that they will either combine the Note into an S7 series device and forego a Note launch in September? Or what do you think is the rumors there? Because, I mean, as good as the Note launch is towards the September-August timeframe, it kind of stinks because when you saw with the Note 5 compared to the Galaxy S6, there really wasn't any new hardware features.
Yeah.
And trying to launch a Note 6 up against the new iPhone 7s, that's going to be a hard sell, especially if they're just recirculating everything that they brought in the Galaxy S7. So do you think that they'll end up combining the two and releasing all 4 devices at one time, or do you think that they're going to keep it split up again?
I hope that they don't pull out 2015, because what really sucked about 2015 is that they were very similar. They were not entirely similar, and they were not different.
Yeah.
So I hope that if they do merge them, fine. But if they don't merge them, I want them to really, really put focus on the Note line as something different from the S7. I really like the Note 4 because it was different than the S5, and oh god, it was so much better. Like I'm sorry if it's a sad thing to state, but I think that the S5 really dropped the ball, and the Note 4 picked it up near the end of the year. There were some polls, I think, that said that the Note 4 was one of the most consumer satisfying phones out there, and to this day I can believe that. I sold my Note 4 to a friend, and he's been loving it. He's been really, really loving that phone so much, and he's really getting into Android because it's so fast, so powerful. I did leave a really nice custom ROM, really optimized, and he's getting way better battery life than I am because that phone was just very good. And I want the same. I don't want to feel like the Note 5 is just a bigger S6 with a stylus, but it is. And I don't want to feel like the Note 6 is just a bigger S7 with a stylus.
Right. I mean, counterpoint that, we've been complaining for years that Samsung is splitting up their software and they've got too many features here and too many features there and they're doing too many things and things are different and, it's just different to be different. The benefit, I think, that the Note 5, the Galaxy S6, the Edge series, and all of them have together is the fact that, you have like Gear VR. You can use the same, consumer Gear VR for all 4 devices, and it doesn't have to be radically different for each one. So there's a definite benefit to having that, having the similar features spread across devices, having a few special ones for the Note, but still having its design and hardware and software be very similar. So I think it's a double-edged sword. We want them to be different, but at the same time, too, it's beneficial for them to be the same because you're going to see software updates come out better, and accessory support is going to be better in the future as well.
Yeah. So again, what I do say is, I believe in future parity, not in the sense that the Note shouldn't have exclusive features, but if the S6 can do it, let it do it. If the S7 can do it, let it do it.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's when I think where the hardware comes in. I think that Samsung is really. I'm not sure if they're going to really do it. I believe that they will, but they should feature on hardware because right now we know that their software is not going to pull them ahead. They've been focusing on hardware a lot, but at this point in time, they really need a way to justify the premium price point that they will ask for. And I don't think that it will be significantly lower than in previous years. I do think that the S6 was very overpriced when it came out, and then it saw subsequent price drops really early on into its lifetime, and I think that justifiably so. Especially considering that LG itself, it has a tendency to not just pricing them generally lower, but also including all these awesome deals. Now, don't get me wrong, Samsung does the same, but it just does it in services and things that people might try out, but people might not really want. I think that when they include
3 years
Netflix,
of free Netflix.
right. When it's stuff like Netflix, sure, because who doesn't have Netflix? At the same time, it's likely that some people have already had like a year of Netflix paid, and like, well, whatever. it's an investment. But LG actually includes hardware and tangible things like extra batteries, and micro SD cards. All those things are really nice to have.
Well, I do have Netflix myself, but one thing I don't have is Marshmallow. Here we are approaching the end of January, and I feel like I am honestly going to have to wait until the S7 comes out before I can see Marshmallow on my Samsung device. Because I'm not because I use Samsung Pay, I haven't rooted my device or installed any custom ROMs. I know we've seen some previews come out, especially I think UK. They've done some private betas, but man, it's frustrating seeing it take so long. And I think now we're seeing the LG G3 is starting to roll out updates to Marshmallow before the G4. So
and not just that, but on Verizon of all carriers.
Exactly.
That's just like the weirdest thing, isn't it? So on updates, Samsung has a really weird. So what Samsung does that I really hate is that they do release updates pretty fast sometimes, not always, but when they do release them pretty fast. And when they release them fast, they are so localized. Like they release it in Russia or in Poland, and then people can either flash it on their devices, a custom ROM or a port, or sometimes even the thing itself will just work. You just gotta configure the APN, like it happened with the Canadian and the T-Mobile Note 4. They're exactly the same device as far as hardware is concerned. You just gotta configure the network differently. So they do release it, but their market is so fragmented with so many SKUs and with so many different carrier versions. And it's so localized too that sure, great, they released it in Russia. It's gonna be a while before you ever get it.
Yeah. And do you think that, I mean, in my personal opinion, I think that's something that Samsung is trying to fix now, with bringing some uniformity to their devices, like we were talking about, bringing their software in uniformity, bringing their hardware in uniformity. So they're not building a million different builds for every single country. I know they're still doing that, but they can be closer together. And help them get updates out faster. But I mean, honestly, there's not really too much of an excuse for this. We're 4.5 months into the product cycle for Marshmallow. The developers and us have had it for a considerable amount of time longer. Samsung's had the time to work on this software, and I mean, all carriers. We're picking on Samsung. But LG,
because who doesn't? We always
they have a target on their back. But LG, Samsung, HTC, all of them are pretty much in the same boat. We see the HTC. They're so quick to do their promises for their upgrade and stuff like that. But there's a lot of M9 devices that still don't have 6.0. Both carrier and a non-carrier. I believe the carrier unlocked version does not have 6.0 yet, but the international version does, or the developer version doesn't. So I think a lot of OEMs are dropping the ball in this Marshmallow update, and I don't know whether or not it's because they're trying to focus on making sure they get these software patches out, or if they're what's going on there. I'm not 100% sure, but I think they all need to be raked over the coals for this one.
And that's the other thing. Samsung's promising some things here, and they're not delivering it. It also stretches to the monthly security updates that Google's been coming out with. Samsung was very quick to make the promise that they're going to be adding these monthly security updates each month. However, the last monthly security update that they actually pushed out was back in like December 1st. So here we are approaching end of January.
I have December 1st right now.
Yeah, I mean they're making all these promises, not following through. Something's obviously got to change. This is we're getting to the point now, especially when you look at the competition. You see someone like Apple, they're coming out with a new software update. Boom, everyone can release it all on day one, right? They've got different ecosystems, so it's a bit easier. But you have to wonder, is there a better way for us to accomplish this on Android?
Yeah, yeah, and Apple, I think we've discussed this before. When Apple releases an update, it's an event, and everyone talks about it. Even if just a passing comment. I mean, I'm not expecting everyone to jump on a Hangouts like we are and discuss it in depth. But people are like, "Oh, you like the new iPhone? Yeah, it's really good. The new iOS, yeah, it's really good. It looks nicer. Yeah, the font has changed. Yeah, it completely fried my phone because it's 4 years old. But at least people talk about it, and it kind of gives this idea that it actually happened. Whereas in a KitKat and Marshmallow, and people don't really know. People don't really know, and it's sad too, because it's very fragmented right now, and even the companies are pledging to address the problem. They're not doing it right. I do appreciate that Samsung and others are providing Vedas for their Marshmallow builds. I also appreciate what Sony is doing. I really, really appreciate what they have done with their Xperia Marshmallow concept, which in fact it was doing so well. I think we saw a poll in the Xperia blog this week that said that most people just would use it forever. That they don't want to give it up. I mean, the testing might be over, but they don't care. They really like it. So that level of satisfaction, and I've had many people in XDA tell me just how great it is. And then the Xperia C3 Compact, I think, is like the battery life amazing, even more so than before, because the C3 Compact already have very good battery life. And we hear that we will get updates for the Honor devices too. And a lot of people, we keep hearing promises and promises and promises and promises. But I actually want to try Marshmallow. I tried the test build on the Note 5. I saw some early improvements I really liked. So that's why I can't wait to get it. But like Corey said, it's very likely, and I already told you guys, I plan on selling this phone if they have an S7 that has a proper screen size, for phablet screen size. So I might actually not even experience it, because I might just sell this phone before it comes.
I remember that was the way it was with when I had the Note 4, and I went from the Note 4 to the S6, and I was waiting for Lollipop, waiting for Lollipop, waiting for Lollipop. I got the S6, and then Lollipop comes out for it. So it is really sad to see them so far behind. But what the sad part is? Go on, Corey.
And we're talking about, we're power users. We have the latest hardware, and we're still not getting it. If you look at the market share or the adoption rate from Android as a whole, as of January of this year, it was released that there was only 30% adoption of Lollipop, and 0.9% of devices have Marshmallow on them.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a really horrendous adoption rate.
Yeah, it is really sad to see the adoption rate. I mean, seeing Lollipop up at 30% is impressive. I don't remember how long it took. Oh shoot, what came before Lollipop?
I think KitKat. I think KitKat was actually faster.
It was
because of the not faster because of the fact that devices were being updated faster, but I think the percentage grew because there was a huge push behind KitKat. It was the push of, hey, affordable devices with 1 gig of RAM are actually pretty good. I scratch that; they're actually usable now. And in fact, it's pretty sad. There was a discussion on this on the subreddit this week that said that does anyone else feel like KitKat was faster than Lollipop? And to be honest, I still have not been as mind blown at a device's speed since I unboxed the Nexus 5 on KitKat. I still haven't had that feeling of, wow, this device is really fast, and then activating art and being like, oh my god, I mean, it's ludicrous. I feel that feeling of even just responsiveness, I think, I don't get anymore. Maybe it was because it was the first time that I saw such a gigantic leap forward. But that was such an optimized version of Android, and now we see Lollipop and even Marshmallow come out with bugs. There's still reports of memory bugs on Nexus 6B owners. there's still Lollipop was such a messy release, and the fact that even though it was such a messy release, it didn't do comparatively as bad as Marshmallow is doing now, which is comparatively as well, is not such a huge rework, because Lollipop brought a complete change with art by putting it as a default runtime. Lollipop brought material design. Lollipop brought a lot of things. And Marshmallow, while it's beautiful, it's still I think it's a much more Google thing than it is an Android thing.
Yeah, one thing to keep in mind as well, though, is that it did take KitKat a couple of different versions before it got super stable. Now, when I speak about versions, I'm talking about before major Android changes. So you're considering
4.4.4, yeah.
Well, no, not even that. Go all the way back to Ice Cream Sandwich, all the way up to KitKat. It took Ice Cream Sandwich, Jelly Bean, and then KitKat before it really got to a point. Jelly Bean was actually an awful OS. But it took a while and 3 versions before it finally got to the point where this is a stable operating system. And the same thing with Gingerbread, in my opinion. You had Froyo, Eclair, Froyo, and then Gingerbread, and then finally in Gingerbread you had an OS where I could stay here and I'm going to be happy. So maybe the next one we see after Marshmallow might be the one where that's going to be another. I guess you can call them LTS, for lack of a better term. That this is where it's going to stay, and then it's going to take its next leap. It's going to introduce bugs, but they're going to iron out those bugs over the next few versions. And that's the way I view it. And I mean, I know you're not too crazy about Lollipop. I love Marshmallow on my Nexus 6. It's renewed my love for it. It's fast. It has its problems. I think Google needs to actually discontinue the use of DOS. I know I'm going to get a lot of hate for saying that, but there's a lot of problems with the way DOS works. Namely, if you don't access an app for a couple of days, the DOS feature puts it into app standby and it hibernates it. So you won't get notifications from it. So say you haven't used a social network like over a weekend, and you don't think to open it in the beginning of the week, you will get no notifications until you manually open that app. And it's that whole DOS system that I think needs an overhaul. They need to put it on hold, overhaul it, and then before they reintroduce it. But otherwise, though, I think Marshmallow is a great OS. But sorry to get sidetracked.
That was but it's a valid sidetrack because it does need to be said. There are problems with DOS. When people are saying when DOS just came out, people are like up in the air because like, oh my god, I lost 0.00001% battery life last night. It's like, wow, that's really great. But there are consequences that come after, and I think that you can get great standby on Android without DOS. In fact, this little device here, and I've been so surprised with the Honor 5X's battery life. You'll be able to read this in my full review coming next week. But the standby is pretty good overnight. On Wi-Fi, it's less than 1%. It's 0.4% per hour. It's done that consistently for the past couple of nights. And I'm actually getting over 5 hours screen on time on a mid-ranger with a Snapdragon 615. It's pretty crazy. I actually got a 4-hour screen on time one day, and I still had juice left over. So, it can be done. And again, this is not the pinnacle of hardware efficiency, and the software surely as hell is not pretty. So I think it can be done. And you just need to, maybe it's just magic. Maybe I'm just, one of those going on a lucky streak or something, which is why I'm always testing for over a week and not just, spit the review out in just a single week. But so far, I've been pretty surprised with this battery life on this device. And I also told you guys that I'm not doing very heavy usage with this because the performance is really bad. So I can't really edit and do my job on this phone. Mm-hmm. But anyway, it's pretty good. So again, going back on topic, and I'm sidetracked as well. I'm sorry to everyone who's listening. I think that DOS is a problem, but battery life needs to be improved, and Android needs consistency, not just in the frequency of updates, but also in the efficacy of updates. Because the fact that you don't see an update for so long means that if you get a bad update, your phone is toast.
Yep. Yeah, and speaking of updates, we as power users, for the most part, are able to sideload updates and kind of do what we want to, But there's another major OEM that's jumping on the bandwagon of locking its bootloaders. Xiaomi was in the news. I think it was early in the week for locking the bootloaders on the devices.
Yeah.
I'm not too familiar with Xiaomi devices, Mario. Can you kind of fill us in on what's going on, with that and why people are so upset about it?
Okay, so Xiaomi devices, obviously they're not very big in the West, but they have a huge following in their own home market, and emerging markets as well. They have a huge community in the MIUI forums, um, and surprisingly enough, even though this set of the community, the MIUI Chinese and emerging market community, does not really overlap with the Western blogosphere that we're so used to, they have a very power user friendly community in the sense that Xiaomi has done many efforts to actually get the ROM out there for devices that are not Xiaomi phones. I've run MIUI on the Note 3, I think, in Exynos Note 3 back in the day. Um, and love it or hate it, MIUI is somewhat popular among people. I know that the people I know from XDA that have Xiaomi phones, they can't wait to load AOSP on that, or AOSP based ROMs. Um, anyway, so there is a geek culture in the Xiaomi community. Believe it or not, they're not just managing to sell a lot of phones, but they have a really, really intense following in their forums, and they have a lot of fanboys. I get a lot of friend requests on Facebook because of XDA, a lot of XDA users, and a lot of my XDA users from the emerging markets, mostly India. They love Xiaomi, and China too. I get so many friend requests from China, and they love Xiaomi, and they can't wait. A lot of people sometimes they joke, I'm using a Xiaomi until I can buy an iPhone, which is so odd. It's like I'm saving up for an iPhone, and they usually make memes about starving for a week to buy an iPhone, which is kind of not nice. But anyway, I think that they do like Xiaomi phones. So what they did is, straight to the point, what they did is they put out this dev ROM build that locked bootloaders, and they issued a statement saying, hey, because of malware and because our phones are resold a lot, which is true, because like I said, the phones are actually liked and they're wanted because of their great value per dollar, or whatever currency, whatever it's sold, it's a good value. So they're resold a lot, and the resellers put malware in it, and just for general device security, they said we're locking bootloaders now. Um, that alone is not bad, because a lot of manufacturers lock their bootloaders, and with good reason too. In fact, the Nexus 5X and all the Nexus for that matter, they don't come bootloader unlocked, surprisingly enough. And believe it or not, because there's so much confusion about this, Samsung devices, international Samsung devices, come bootloader unlock. When you hear people complaining on Reddit that Samsung does not unlock their bootloaders, no, Samsung devices do come with unlocked bootloaders. If it comes with your bootloader locked, that's probably your carrier. That's AT&T, that's Verizon. Do not come shouting at Samsung, because if I gotta give them a prop, it's that even their Exynos devices come with a easily flashable system. The bootloader is unlocked right off the bat. Nexus phones, you have to issue commands through fastboot in order to unlock the bootloader. Just download ADB, fastboot, all that. But these phones, what they're doing, and I'm sorry if I'm expanding a little more than I should, what they're doing is not only are they locking their bootloaders retroactively, but they're also giving preferential treatment to high ranks of their forums, of their fanboy community. And unlocking the bootloader itself can take anywhere from 3 to 21 days. So it's quite a process, and it's quite a process that people are not used to. And Xiaomi itself says in their FAQ, which is hilarious, they say, doesn't this violate the geek spirit of the Xiaomi phones? And they completely dodge the question. So they pick the question and they dodge it, which is hilarious, because they know, they cannot deny that it is a violation of their geek culture. And a lot of people are angry because they actually flashed the ROM, which locked their bootloader, but it was a bad flash, and now they have a boot loop that they cannot fix because they can't unlock their bootloader.
Oh, that sucks. Yeah, I hadn't been too involved in what had been going on, but I had heard some details about it. And I agree with you 100%. Locking the bootloader for the sake of malware I think that's important. We don't
Yeah.
have it too much here in the U.S., but over in China and such, I mean, OnePlus has had that problem too. I know there's a post on the Reddit. I think 2 weeks ago I had a post that commented in where somebody purchased a OnePlus 2 from a third party, and it had some. It wasn't malware, but it was like that Cheetah thing, whatever, was installed, and a couple other questionable applications were installed on the device when they picked it up, and it was brand new. So I really can't blame them for wanting to lock the bootloaders to help curb this, because ultimately it falls back on them.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
you
it's
said,
true.
Samsung's locking bootloaders, blah blah blah. You're right. They don't lock the bootloaders, carriers do, but ultimately it falls back on Samsung. I
Yeah.
think the same thing is happening with Xiaomi and these Chinese brands. So I agree with them locking the bootloaders, but this garbage about having to be high-ranking forum members in order to get it unlocked or whitelisted,
Yeah.
immediately. Otherwise, you have to wait 3 to
Yeah.
21 days. That's absurd. And
Yeah.
especially doing this without warning to the people who are flashing developer builds, who thereby should be developers and should not get their bootloaders locked.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty shady and underhanded for Xiaomi to do for sure.
Yeah, a lot of people flashing, those ROM releases are just regular users, and in fact, I got so many messages of regular users saying, "Help! I broke my Show Me phone." That's actually how I came to learn about this story. As a user that was stuck in a boot loop, and it was just a regular user trying to
Hmm.
get it sorted. Um, so it is a pity, and I really don't like and I'm not just speaking as an XDA person right now. I'm not just speaking as someone who's employed for XDA, but also someone who loves Android. Um, the fact that root is kind of becoming a dirty word in the OEM dictionary, at least for some OEMs, and at least for some carriers. We definitely saw this BlackBerry Priv thing where they said, "No, you will never root this phone," and XDA was like, "Challenge accepted." But it's sad because a lot of people on XDA were following the phone, and then those news came out, and they're like, well, damn, I'm not gonna buy this. I personally was more like, what do you expect? But we see this, and we saw last year with this fiasco where carriers and I think it was the S6, people try to root their phones, and we're like, well, can't let you do that, Dave. So at the same time, some other OEMs are paying a lot more attention to the developer community and to the enthusiast community that's not afraid of flashing ROM. We have OnePlus, which actually released the How to Root Your Phone guide. We have Oppo, which they're providing an AOSP ROM. We have Sony, which has amazing developer efforts. So I see some manufacturers, they're saying, screw your bootloader. We don't want anything to do with that, and we're stopping updates, and there's nothing you can do about it. Good luck porting. But there's also some OEMs that are opening up a little bit more to this, which we always try to on XDA give it a spotlight, because ultimately it's obviously what our community cares about, but also because we believe that Android should be free. That Android free as in freedom, obviously not free as in gratis. Um, and we believe that's ultimately why we're on Android and not a walled garden like iOS. And
Yeah, and
yeah,
it's good that you mentioned iOS. This really reminds me of several years ago, back when we were hearing Apple trying to claim that, hey, it's illegal to jailbreak your phone because it's in the terms and conditions. Now, they're trying to make a more an experience with your phone that's safe, and
yeah,
and people do have bad experiences rooting, but I think it's very important. The developers can be the life of the
yes,
ecosystem, and by allowing them to do, I mean, there's been a lot of projects that have started on rooted devices
yep.
that have then since been integrated into the ecosystem.
Yeah, not only that, we've actually just posted an article on this, a very nice piece by Vice, and it's a piece about how root features that eventually made it into AOSP, and many of them are things that were experimented upon and ironed out by developers. Things that now we take for granted. Things like heads-up notifications. Things things that now, they're so ubiquitous to the Android experience, um, that now we take for granted. And a lot of this walled garden approach ultimately comes so that they can sell you something that you should be able to do in a free computer platform anyway. When Snapchat came out, the idea was so ridiculous because it was like, okay, the picture's gonna disappear, and it's you can only look at it for like 7 seconds. It's like, well, I can just take a screenshot or take a picture of my screen. It's like, are you trying to put a DRM on a picture? But as silly as the process was, Snapchat really tried hard to make it so that it was, well, no, you cannot take a picture of it, which ultimately is unenforceable because people have cameras outside of the phone, and because people can take screenshots, and then they're like, well, no rooted devices allowed, and those kind of things. Ultimately, it's just, okay, you have this freedom, we're going to take it away from you so that we can sell you things that you would be able to do yourself with your freedom, or that wouldn't be able to exist if you were free.
Yeah, and I agree with you at a lot of the points that you made there, but kind of playing devil's advocate for the carriers or OEM, sorry, for a little bit. Leaving your bootloaders unlocked is dangerous, and it's bad for business, and it ends up costing them money in the long run. I mean, how many XDA threads can you go through where somebody says, "Oh, I bricked my phone," and they were doing something stupid, and the carrier or the OEM should not be responsible for it, and they go and they say, "Oh yeah, I called up my OEM and told them that it wasn't turning on anymore, and they sent me a new device."
Right.
So it's something that they directly did that broke their device, but then they go ahead and get it replaced under warranty conditions, as shady as that might sound. So in that aspect of it, it's kind of bad for OEMs to leave their bootloaders unlocked. And further that, with having bootloaders locked, you're able to have a lot of better features like Android Pay and Samsung Pay that are more secure. I can guarantee you that in discussions with these credit card carriers and stuff, root and unlocked bootloaders definitely came up, and it was definitely a topic of discussion because, when somebody has a rooted device, it's very easy for the Joe Schmo who wanted to root their device to get a free tethering hotspot can go in there and put something that's actually going to start doing some severe harm, severe data tracking and things that they can't even see getting done to their device.
Yeah.
And again, that falls back on the OEM. So I can see where they're coming from as being not wanting to unlock bootloaders and locking down more and clamping down more to the walled garden approach. And I can't really blame them too much. And you mentioned a couple of different OEMs earlier that had embraced open bootloader policies. The funny thing about them is every single one of those OEMs are not big. Sony is struggling. Oppo isn't big. OnePlus isn't very big. Now Xiaomi's not very big in the U.S. They're big in China, but they're actually locking down. So the ones who are embracing this open bootloader structure and embracing the developer community aren't really the front runners and aren't really the ones that are leading where Android's going for the future.
Yeah, in fact, that's one of the first things I thought when I read that when I read that forum post that they posted. I was like, "What? Are you too big for that now?" And in a way, I think they are. In a way, I think that their business has grown to the point where this whole geeky culture thing is it's not a nuisance, but it's not as profitable as securing their market and their brand as a, hey, this phone won't track you, or hey, this phone won't be riddled with malware and ads. So I can see why they do that, and I don't resent the business decision in itself, because in fact in the article which I edited quite a lot, I argued and favored that that it's not bad. I mean, I have nothing against locked bootloader in itself, but just the way that it was carried out with such it's like, hey, this is a thing now, and you better, because here's my other problem. It's the whole being a diamond user to be on the whitelist and the fast lane kind of thing. I don't like that because that only encourages something that already happens a lot in MIUI forums, which, again, I'm not a MIUI user. I never done show me phone, so I don't know this firsthand, but I've heard a lot about it, which is the fact that everyone there's a fanboy, and everyone there is just posting to get points and to get rank, and show me forums encourage basically posting of compliments and stuff. For example, just you got a comment to download and all these silly things that ultimately I think that a lot of this appeal for Show Me and their community efforts and the whole community is built on a false grounds, kind of like this whole forum is kind of brainwashed in a way.
Yeah.
Not brainwashed, but mind controlled by these very, not mind controlled, again, directed, that like their efforts and the results are directed by these policies and these hive mind.
Yeah, and I definitely hope something changes with Xiaomi with that. Maybe the the backlash they're getting from this whole situation might be enough for them to maybe rethink their stance. I agree with them, unlocking them from the onset, but maybe putting in a structured bootloader unlock system very similar to what HTC had, where you just go online, you sign in, you put in your OEM token from your device, and you get an unlock token within like 5 minutes. So maybe hopefully they'll move towards something like that to embrace both sides of the coin there.
Yeah, a system like that would be much better. I think that especially for the people that are sadly stuck in a boot loop, those people I think are the ones that are most angry. And I know that there's been a community backlash, and in fact it had been going on for over a week before we broke the news. I was surprised that nobody picked it up before us. But then again, that goes to show you that since all the big manufacturers are kind of moving away from that, we're too big for it. It's not getting as much attention in this blogosphere.
Absolutely. Well, good discussion on that topic, and I think with that we're going to end it for this week. We had quite a few good discussions. Started things off talking about new device rumors with the LG G5 and Samsung Galaxy S7, which then led us into Samsung's issues with getting the newest updates out there, and broader discussion to updates as a whole. Transitioning to, I guess at the very end here, we're talking a lot about bootloaders, modding community, and how important that is, and what are the impacts of locking the bootloader, especially in a way that Xiaomi has chosen to do that. So, very good topics this week. Looking forward to talking to you guys again next week. Once again, this is Corey Fiaca. You can find me on Twitter at Codismsdev.
And Daniel Marchena, you can find me on Twitter, Reddit, and on XDA at Ultimax98.
All right, this is Mario, Flashaholic in Recovery, XDA editor, and you can find me on XDA, you can find me on Twitter, you can find me on Reddit. My handle is TuckYoungGun in all those places. I usually post every week. If not, I'm just editing behind the scenes. Hope you have a nice weekend.